Hello, welcome to Tennessee's At Home Learning Series for Literacy. Today's lesson is for all our second graders out there, though everyone is welcome to tune in. This lesson is the third in this week's series. My name is Mrs. Ledford. I'm a second grade teacher at Prescott South Elementary School in Cookeville, Tennessee. I'm so excited to be your teacher for this lesson. Welcome to my virtual classroom. If you didn't see our previous lesson, you can find it on our website at www.tn.gov/education. You can still tune in for today's lesson if you haven't seen any of our others, but it might be more fun if you first go back and watch our other lessons, since today we'll be talking about things we learned previously. Today, we are going to be reading a legend. Before we get started, to participate fully in our lesson, you will need two pieces of paper, a pencil, a surface to write on, and you can access the student packet on our website, ELA, Grade 2, Lesson 13, and our website is www.tn.gov/education. Also, if you'd like to keep a device handy, you can take a picture of the television screen at any time if you feel I'm going too fast. Okay, let's begin. In the previous lesson, we read the fable titled The Tale of Peter Rabbit. You wrote a response to a prompt about the moral of the story. Get out your response now, and let's compare what you've written to what I wrote. So if you have that response, go ahead and grab it now. Great job, everybody. All right, boys and girls, let's reread that prompt again, okay? It said, retell the important details from the tale of Peter Rabbit. Describe the moral of the story. Did you remember to use vocabulary words from our vocabulary graphic organizer? When I read my response, I want you to wiggle your nose like a rabbit when you hear vocabulary words from yesterday. Okay, let's read. Peter's mother went to the bakery and warned the children to not get into mischief. Did you begin your response with a detail from the beginning of the fable? Great. Peter disobeyed and got into mischief by going to Mr. McGregor's garden. He was almost caught and trembled. Okay, boys and girls, he had to scutter. Did you use important details from the middle of our story? How many vocabulary words did you use? Peter made it home. He didn't feel well. His mother gave him a dose of tea and put him to bed as Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail got bread and milk with blackberries. Did you use the same details from the end of the tale? The moral or lesson of the story is that there are consequences if you break the rules. Did you respond with the same moral? Excellent job. Well, today, boys and girls, our goal is to determine the values of the character in the legend. We will begin with me teaching you what a legend is, and then there will be time for you to practice on your own with my support. Finally, I will assign you independent work that you can complete after this video ends. Today, we are going to read a legend. This story is similar to a myth. Let's first review a myth. Do you remember the myths that we read last week? Touch your head if you remember reading a myth with Neptune in it last week. Good. Some of you were with me listening. Well, let's review that really quickly, okay? Neptune was the god of the seas, and he had a very bad temper. He watched over the people of Rome and enjoyed the attention of the townspeople. He went in search of a town without a god in hopes they would also want him. Well, the town he found had also had another god, Minerva, show up. Now, there is no room for two gods in one town, so Minerva came up with a plan. She and Neptune would each give the town a gift, and the one gift that the townspeople enjoyed the most would win the town's attention. Minerva won by giving the town an olive tree, which they could use for all sorts of things. That is why, to this day, Rome's special tree is an olive tree. All right, boys and girls, let's review the characteristics of a myth. First, these are stories that were passed down by word of mouth many years ago. Second, the characters are often supernatural, like gods and goddesses. Lastly, their stories explain events in nature or teach people how to behave. A legend has some similarities to a myth. These are stories from many years ago, passed down by word of mouth. The stories are meant to teach children values or how to become a better person, just like in a myth. And I want you to say the word values. A value is a trait that people strive to have, like being honest, kind, or helpful. These values make you a good person. However, a legend differs from a myth in that the characters are normal people or people from history. These stories are believed to have happened in some capacity, but some elements are fantasy or make believe, things that have been added. So let's review. How are myths and legends similar? Excellent. They're both stories that have been told by mouth and passed down. And they also teach people how to behave, right? Now, how is a legend different from a myth? Great. Legends have characters that are normal people, not supernatural people like gods and goddesses. Legends are also thought to be real events with just a touch of make believe added in. Okay, boys and girls, today we are going to read this legend called The Legend of the Dipper. And as we read today, I want us to pay attention to the actions of the character. Remember, legends are supposed to teach us values that will help us become better people. As we read today, we will take some notes about the actions of the character. First, I want you to take out one of your pieces of paper and a pencil. We will need this to take notes. Okay? So let's get started. There was once a little girl who had a dear mother, and they lived quite alone in a little house in the woods. They were always very happy, but one day the mother grew so ill that it seemed as though she could never be strong and well again. Who are the characters in this story? Yes, a little girl and her mother. And what's the setting? Where is this story happening? Excellent, a little house in the woods. What seems to be the problem? Yes, her mother is sick. Okay, let's keep reading. I must have a drink of clear, cold water, she cried as she lay in bed, so weak, suffering from thirst. It was dark night, and there was no one near to ask for water. So the little girl took her tin dipper and started out alone to the spring to bring her mother a drink. What does the little girl's mother need? Yes, she needs a drink of water. Listen to this phrase. Which word from this phrase gives you evidence that the mother needs a drink? She lay in bed so weak and suffering from thirst. Excellent. Suffering from thirst means she's thirsty and she needs a drink. When we think back to the setting, we said this story was taking place at a little house in the woods. In this part of the story, we heard there was no one near to ask for water. Why might that be? Good answer. The girl and her mom are living alone in the woods, right? So they don't have neighbors like some of us do. So there wouldn't be someone to ask for help. Listen to the following sentence. This little girl took her tin dipper and started out alone to the spring to bring her mother a drink. There are a couple of words in this sentence that I want to talk about. Say the word dipper. This is referring to a water dipper. Long ago, in houses where there was no running water, some people would use this to dip the water from streams to drink. Okay, so make a fist like you are going to hold a dipper. Now, let's say dipper as we take a sip. Ready? Dipper. Very good, boys and girls. Say spring. This little girl's mother was thirsty, so the girl took her water dipper and started out towards the spring. What do you think a spring might be? Good guess. It's a source of water. Springs can be often found in the mountains or in the woods. Let's make a movement with our hand, like waves in a stream. Very good. Now let's say spring. Very good. We made some springs. Okay, good job, boys and girls. How is the little girl going to solve this problem of her mother being thirsty? Absolutely. She is going to go get her mother some water from the spring. Okay? A character trait is something we say a character has based on their actions. For example, earlier this week when we read the story The Elephant and the Crocodile, we when they asked the lion to help them determine who the better animal was, the lion gave them the challenge that they would have to do together in order to succeed. This action makes the lion a wise character for offering a solution to their argument. Let's think about a character trait that might describe the actions of this little girl. It was a dark night and there was no one near to ask for water. So that little girl took her tin dipper and she started alone to the spring to bring her mother a drink. How is she acting? By going out in the dark all alone to get her mother some water. Yes, I think those are some good traits. One trait that I thought of was brave. Did you think she was brave to do that? Yes, I think so too. She's very brave. Now remember, today we are looking for actions the character does that might teach us values or ways to become good people. Okay, so did that little girl do something that might show she's a good person? Yes, she decided that she was going to get water for her mother because there was no one there to help her. Let's add this to our notes. Take out one of your pieces of paper and let's first make a little bullet point to keep our notes organized. Remember, a bullet point is just a little dot on your paper, and you don't have to write in complete sentences when you're making notes on your paper, okay? So we're just going to add brave to get her mom water. Brave to get mom water, okay? We just want to remember that about this character. That's a character trait that she has. She's brave. Okay, boys and girls, let's keep reading. She went a long way through the woods and she grew so very tired, being such a tiny girl, but she filled her tin dipper at the spring and started home. Sometimes the water spilled because it was not easy to carry, and sometimes the little girl stumbled over stones in the dark road. All at once she felt a warm touch upon her hand and she stopped. It was a little dog who had been following her, for he too was nearly dying of thirst, and he touched her hand with his hot tongue. Why did that little girl get tired, boys and girls? Yes, she had traveled a long way. She had to run. Very good. Why did the water spill? It is not easy to carry water in a dipper like that, is it? No, and she was tripping on the rocks. Who did she meet on her way back home? You're right, she met a dog. Very good. What was wrong with the dog? Yes, he was also thirsty. The text said he was nearly dying of thirst. So let's read and see what happens next. The little girl looked at her dipper. There was only very little water in it, but she poured a few drops in her hand and let the thirsty dog lap them. He seemed as refreshed as if he had been to the river to drink. And a wonderful thing happened to the tin dipper. Although the little girl did not see, it was changed to a silver dipper with more water in it than before. What did that little girl do for that dog? Yes, she gave him some water. Now, why do you think she decided to share her water with him? I think you're right. That dog was thirsty and she wanted to help. In our story today, the little girl offered to share some water with the thirsty dog, even though it was for her sick mother, and even though she only had very little. What word might we be able to use to describe that little girl? What is that character trait? Yes, I think We could say she's kind. Let's add that to our notes. First, we want to add a bullet point. And remember, we're not writing in complete sentences at this time. It's just to keep our notes organized, just a little dot on your paper. And we're going to say that that girl is kind because she helps the dog. Kind. She helps the dog. Good job, boys and girls. So, very good. Now, let's look at another word that might be confusing from our story. Listen to this sentence. She poured a few drops onto her hand and let the thirsty dog lap them. Does anyone know what lap might mean here? Raise your hand if you have a dog. I do. I love dogs. And when dogs drink, they use their tongues to scoop up the water, and that is called lapping. Okay? So the dog drank the water from her hand. Now, what happened because she shared her water? Yes, her tin dipper turned into a silver and more water appeared. Let's keep reading. The little girl started on again, hurrying very fast, for she remembered how much her mother needed her. But she had not gotten very far when she met a stranger in the road. He was tall and wore shining garments. Okay, and he looked at that little girl's face and he reached out for his hand for the dipper and he begged for a drink of the clear, cold water. So, what happens as that girl continues her trip? Yes, she meets a man. Very good. And what does he want? Yes, he also wants a drink of her water. So, do you think she'll share her water with this stranger? Let's keep reading and find out. So now the little girl thought how her mother had taught her she should always be kind to strangers. So she held up the water to his lips, and very suddenly, as the stranger drank, the silver dipper was changed to a gold dipper, full to the brim of sparkling water. Was your prediction right? Did she share her water? Why did she do that? You're right. She remembered her mother said always be kind to strangers. Do you think we should add this to our notes? I do too. First, let's make another bullet point. Okay, now let's write shared her water with a stranger. Shared water with a stranger. Very good, boys and girls. She shared her water with a stranger. This is another example of this little girl's kindness and willingness to share. What happened to the dipper now? You're right. It changed from silver to gold and more water was added. When the author wrote about the water, they said the dipper changed to gold and was full to the brim with water. Touch your head if you've ever heard someone say full to the brim. Okay, very good. Wow. So the brim is the upper part of something. So the dipper was filled all the way to the top. Okay. Now, this little girl hurried on, but the road was so very long and she was so tired that it seemed as if she could never reach home again. She was weak and faint and she longed to drink just a few drops of that water. But no, her mother would need all that was left. So she never took a drink herself, but hastened home and carried it to her dear mother. How is that little girl feeling in this part of the story? She is feeling weak and tired and thirsty. Why doesn't she take a drink of that water? Because she shared it with the dog and the stranger already. She knows that her mom needs it. She doesn't know that the water has been replenished or filled back up after each time she shares it. This is a special trait known as being unselfish. When someone is selfish, they don't share with others. They only think of themselves. To be unselfish means the opposite of that. She didn't think of herself. Instead, she thought of her mother and saved the water for her. Let's add that to our chart. I want you to write unselfish. And she thought of others before she thought of herself. Excellent. And then came the greatest wonder of all. As soon as the dear mother drank, she became quite well and strong once more. The gold dipper, as it touched her lips, was changing to a diamond dipper, all shining and blazing with glittering gems. How did her mother respond to drinking that water? Yes, she became well and strong. What happened to the dipper? It turned from gold to diamonds. The author uses the phrase blazing with glittering gems. Blazing means to burn brightly. And the diamond dipper left her fingers and shined up in the sky over the house and the woods. And there it shines every night to tell all little children how once a child was brave and unselfish and kind. What happened to the dipper? Yes, it went to shine as a constellation. What reminder does the dipper give us? You're right. It reminds us to be kind and brave and unselfish, just like this little girl from the story. Boys and girls, earlier we talked about the characteristics of the legend. Let's go back and review those really quickly. The characteristics of a legend. Legends are meant to teach children values, becoming a better person. What values does this legend teach us? Yes, think about the characteristics that this brave girl showed. So it taught us to be brave and kind and unselfish. The characters are normal people or people from history. Who are our characters in today's legend? Excellent. The little girl, the mom, the dog, the stranger. Could all the characters be from normal life? Yes, they could be. The stories are believed to have happened in some capacity, but elements of fantasy or make believe have things that have been added. What parts of this legend could really have happened? Yes, a mom could be sick, a girl could go get her water, the girl sharing water, many more. What parts are fantasy or make believe? Great. Dippers can't magically change from tin to gold to diamonds. They also cannot turn into constellations. Legends are meant to teach us values, right? So the three values we learned from this lesson were to be kind, brave, and unselfish. Let's read back through our notes and see if we can remember when the little girl displayed these values and showed them in her actions. I'm going to switch the picture for you to remember. The first value was the girl being brave. Where in our notes do we call out that the girl's action showed she was brave? You're right. At the beginning, she had to go find water for her mother. It was dark and she was all alone in the forest. This was a very brave thing she did. The next value was being kind. Where in our notes do we have evidence of the girl acting kind? There are many places. Once, when she made the decision to go get water for her sick mother. Another example was when she shared her water with a dog and a stranger. And the final value was being unselfish. Remember, this means sharing with others. Where in our notes do we have evidence of the girl acting unselfishly? Great. When she shares her water with others. And at the end, when she decides to save the water for her mother instead of drinking any for herself. Boys and girls, today we read the legend of the Dipper. A legend is a story that teaches values or how to be a good person. The character in this story does things for others even though she has very little for herself. What are the values the legend of the Dipper tries to teach? How does the character show these values throughout the story? Let's take a minute and I want you to take a picture of your television screen today, okay, with a device in your home, or you can write down this assignment, okay? The Legend of the Dipper. These are some of the values that this little girl displayed. And here is your assignment today. Now that you have your device ready, okay, a legend is a story that teaches values or how to be a good person. The character in the story does things for others, even though she has very little. What are the values the legend of the Dipper tries to teach? How does the character show these values throughout the story? Okay. I encourage you to read your story to someone at your house today when you finish writing. I also encourage you to write in complete sentences, boys and girls. Remember, complete sentences have a capital letter, an end mark, they make sense, and they also have a subject and a verb. So go back through and reread your work when you're finished and make sure you can't catch any errors in your own work, okay? So after you take a picture of this, you're going to write in complete sentences today to answer this question. And then you're going to read what you've written to someone at your house today. Sound good? All right. I enjoyed reading The Legend of the Dipper with you today. Thank you for inviting me into your home. I look forward to seeing you in our next lesson in Tennessee's At Home Learning Series. Bye-bye.
We know this year didn't go according to plan. Life occasionally springs a pop quiz on you, but you passed the test. Your family is proud of you, and Tennessee is proud of you. This year may have been different, but you met the moment and graduated. And we, at the Tennessee Department of Education, want to spend the next few weeks celebrating your accomplishment. Congratulations, class of 2020.